You're watching Herald Now. It's just gone 8 minutes after 8. So a couple of developments from Gaza overnight. We've had the international community hopeful, somewhat hopeful, that Trump's envoy may have been able to negotiate some sort of ceasefire, another one, to end the suffering and end the humanitarian disaster. Israel has agreed loosely to the terms. Hamas said overnight that they are studying this agreement. The other thing we need to talk about this morning is aid and how it is reaching those Palestinians inside Gaza who are so hungry. We've all seen the images on the screen and we want it to stop, right? So there is aid that's going in there, but it's via an American and Israeli-controlled organisation that's quite controversial. Here to talk about this is the former Prime Minister of New Zealand and former head of the UNDP, Helen Clark. Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start with this potential deal. Are you hopeful after what you've heard?
Well, we have to have hope because what is happening is so catastrophic. And it's my opinion that really the only outside country which can stop this is the United States of America because of its extremely close relationship with Israel. It's clear that President Trump is moved by the scenes of starvation and what's happening to the children. He's got his envoy on the case. Clearly there's some exchange of documents that they've taken to the Israelis, taken to the Hamas leaders. So let's hope. We just want it to end, as you said.
When it comes to the aid, does it matter where it comes from?
Yes, it does, because the group that's taking it in are not experienced in this situation. Actually, the UN and many other agencies are. Even little agencies from New Zealand like Relief Aid, which had their North Gaza team killed, I understand, in bombing just in the very recent times. The UN, UNICEF, World Food Programme, UNRWA, they've all got trucks lined up at the border, but they can't get in while this other initiative goes on. And you would have seen this horrible scenes of people fighting for the food because they're desperate.
So Israel's argument is that when the aid goes through the UN, goes through these other agencies, Hamas steals it.
Well, the agencies, of course, would refute that. And always Israel comes back to this argument that it's fighting Hamas. How do they know that Hamas operatives are not in those crowds that are running for the food where they're distributing? So I really think they should have stuck to the established channels of getting the aid in. There are many international organisations, NGOs and the UN ones, which have a lot of experience with this.
What do you think the end game of an American-owned and an American-controlled and Israeli-sanctioned aid group like this one is? Is it just to help, or do you think that there's more going on here?
Well, I think President Trump knows that you can't let the starvation continue. The Israelis are saying they're only going to let aid in through this particular channel, but it's not the best channel. Those agencies which are very experienced ought to be able to get in there and deliver the aid they've got waiting.
I want to talk to you about Ukraine as well and what's going on there. We might take a quick break before we do that, Prime Minister, if that's okay with you. And if you don't mind sticking around with us. You're watching Herald Now, just gone 11 minutes after 8 o'clock. We're talking to the former Prime Minister, Helen Clark, and also head of the UNDP about, well, a whole bunch of stuff, but some of the hotspots around the world and how we can try and confront those challenges. We'll be back with her in just a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. It's just gone 14 after 8 on your Friday morning. Let's go to Europe now with former Prime Minister, UNDP head Helen Clark. Welcome back. So this week we had quite a significant development because you've got Olaf Scholz is now out of the picture. Some argue he was a bit softer on Ukraine, particularly when it came to weapons. And Merz is now saying there's no limit on how far you can fire missiles and we're going to help with building munitions together, that will go further and deeper into Russia. What is your assessment of where this goes?
The question is whether Chancellor Merz can get the support across his coalition and across the Parliament. One is reading that the Social Democrats and others aren't so keen on going so far. And as we saw in the past, the previous Chancellor, Scholz, was always a bit tepid on this. Again, an end to this war is critical. President Trump doesn't like this either. Actually, he quite likes to stop wars, but it's not ending quickly. And President Putin, of course, is sitting there, not actually accountable.
He loves it.
Yeah, he's not accountable in any democratic sense. So the sort of scenes and miseries and death and injury toll, which would probably destroy any democratically elected leader, have no impact on him. So he is just continuing to throw troops and munitions at it until he gets what he wants. And that's where President Trump, again, is a critical player, because he has things he can do to make it more unpleasant for the war to continue like that.
What about Xi Jinping? Al Gillespie said this week, and I thought it was an interesting point, there is one man who could end this war tomorrow, and it's Xi Jinping. He's the one that's buying up Putin's oil when Europe won't. He's the one that's helping behind the scenes with munitions, etc. Is he got more of a role to play here?
He could also be critical, but that would require the Americans and the Chinese to be on better terms than they are. The Chinese can play an interesting role. They brokered, for example, a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran to some extent. So let's not discount that they could be very important in trying to end this, but it would require more American-China conversation.
But are they not propping Russia up, by buying Russia's oil when the rest of the world won't?
Well, others are buying their oil, including India, I suspect.
Yeah, India.
This has been the problem, that the West can put sanctions on, but they're not UN sanctions, which everybody puts on. They're Western sanctions, and then there's other routes out of Russia.
So where does that leave the world when you've got the West who like to be quite moral about things and who like to end wars, not start them, and then you've got these developing countries now becoming powerful who are able to prop each other up when sanctioned by the West. Where does this leave the world?
It leaves the war going on, doesn't it? Until there's much more behind-the-scenes diplomacy. You really need shuttle diplomacy that's more than just Brussels, London, New York, Paris, etc. You need the shuttle diplomacy not only needs to go to Moscow, it needs to go to Beijing, it needs to go to Delhi, it needs to go to the very important emerging capitals. Think of Brazil, for example, and South Africa.
Yeah.
These leaders sit in the BRICS organisation with President Putin. So I think broader diplomacy to try and get to a settlement.
Do you think there's some diplomatic snobbery that might be getting in the way of solutions?
Just not engaging the full range of actors. And if you want a war like this to end with all its complexities, you need more people in that conversation, in my opinion.
Appreciate you coming in this morning. Lovely to see you. That's former Prime Minister, Head of your NZ Helen Clark. You're watching Herald Now. It is 17 after 8. We'll be back with our